Jambo, Espresso Talk Today community. Or should I say, Espresso Talk Today Awujo. I'm sure you remember that word means community in the Yoruba language. If you don't, then you should sign up for the ETT newsletter for uncommon information and insights. I'll tell you how later. It's Robin here. Thank you so much for joining us today for this uncommon conversation. I've been talking about the importance of culture and community for the past few weeks, and we've been talking about anti-Black environments and how they affect Black mental and physical health. And this made me think that it's time to revisit the prevalence of white supremacist culture and community in the United States. We're joined today by Kirk Wadi from the YouTube channel called Wadi Speaks, which discusses Black history and Black culture. It's a fantastic and informative site, so I strongly encourage you to visit Wadi Speaks. Kirk is a dedicated educator, and he brought so much great knowledge and insight to this show. Ben, you all remember Ben, also joined this show. He's a political science student at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam, and he also brought great insights and a youthful perspective to the show. Then there's me, and you all know me. Well, let's get started with this important show, and I have a surprise for you at the end of the show that you're going to want to hear about. Let's get started. Hey, Ben.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, thanks. Hey, I'm just sitting there having an espresso with Kirk. You remember Kirk, right?
Oh yeah, Kirk, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, man?
Yeah, it's all good here.
All right.
Yeah, but although it's been warm weather, I've been having some rather chilling thoughts as about
Do I need to be worried?
potentially, and specifically what I'm thinking about are certain monuments that uphold or that could be construed as, or that outright are racist or post-colonial. And the first one that kind of comes to mind as a college student also.
Oh, can we back up for a second? Why have you been thinking about that?
Well, I don't know. To be honest, I think it's just these things come to mind, and as you're having discussions with people, I was talking to someone last night about Leopold II, and I mean these things they're floating around your mind. But anyway, with Cecil Rhodes and his scholarship, I just started thinking and about what that means and whether it should be renamed based on the type of person he was and the things he did.
You know, I've heard of Cecil B. Rhodes, but I don't know much about him. Who was Cecil B. Rhodes?
Cecil Rhodes is best known as a large business owner of mining companies. However, he also acquired a lot of political power as the Prime Minister of the Cape Parliament. And this was a parliament in Africa. And during this time, he expropriated a lot of land from Black Africans, and he used the Glenn Gray Act, which was a law at the time, to do this. And the way he made a lot of his money was through mining, and specifically of mining diamonds. So you may have heard of the De Beers Company. Now, this was a company that Cecil Rhodes founded, and it's often associated with the exploitation of African, and specifically Black African, labor for diamonds. So, with that in mind, and this history, he's obviously a very controversial character, and someone who ardently supported British colonialism. However, I think that the scholarship should remain in place, primarily because of the opportunities it provides to people. I don't think these opportunities should be taken away, and I think they've helped a lot of people. So those scholarships should stay. Whether or not we call them the Cecil Rhodes Scholarship probably should change, considering the fact that Cecil Rhodes may not have supported many of the people who have achieved success through this scholarship. Do you guys have any thoughts of your own about this? Or
Well, you know what you're doing. You're touching a hot topic.
yeah,
When you're messing with people's quote unquote heritage, we got a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
That's heritage. What is heritage? Things that are passed down. Do I pass down my dirty socks to my kids?
Oh, let's hope not. No.
but but that's what you're going to hear. No, that's heritage. That's pride. Okay, so
Well,
you got to have some solid evidence when you start attacking quote unquote people's sacred eggs.
Yeah,
even if they're rotten.
That's true. But what I think, yeah, I mean, a scholarship, there are some good things about a scholarship.
yeah, and I mean, in his will, Cecil Rhodes wrote, well, there's a quotation there that says he wanted it to be open to everybody, like regardless of their race, uh, their opinions, anything. He wanted it to be open. I think theoretically it was supposed to be this diplomatic channel for individuals, but it seems like the Rhodes Scholarship has this tradition or history of not including as many women or people of color into the scholarship. And I mean, I think that's always a complicated thing. So I don't know where one would go with that. Maybe renaming it, maybe framing the scholarship differently, or changing the direction of it.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear that the statue out of Oxford was torn down, was pulled down.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The decolonizing education, that's a big thing, especially with places like SOAS or Oxford for that matter as well.
Yeah, I've heard that SOAS is actually there is a lot of, well, it's founded on colonial, times, and with the colonial kind of, I don't even know how to call it, under colonization.
Yeah.
But it's expanded beyond that now.
Yeah, it has. I mean, originally it was used to kind of collect information from colonies. That's how it started.
Well, I don't know. So what did you decide on? How did you decide on that one?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do anything, probably rename it, because there's a lot of tension around the Cecil Rhodes name. But to change the name would also probably be to change a part of the scholarship. And it seems like changing scholarships is, well, it's complicated, and they are genuinely valuable assets to some people who need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you do, Kirk?
As far as Cecil Rhodes,
Yeah.
I think, there are things that are good that need to be renamed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a dear friend of mine. He's a white guy, really good, real sweet guy, very nice. And Rich, we were sitting around talking one day, and he was like very, very. You could feel some insecurity in the air, and we were talking about things like this, sensitive subjects. And he goes, "Well, I hope this doesn't offend you, but yeah, my great grandparents were slave owners, and on some, he said they were well to do, so they had their own personal cemetery." And he said it was kind of weird for him. One day he was walking through the cemetery, and some of the plaques, I guess the headstones said, "Here lies so and so. He was a good master."
Oh, wow. Wow.
Do you take down the headstone? In that case, no, because they're no longer around. But in the case of somebody that I guess did do some good, you eat the meat, spit the bones. So how do you do that? You rename it.
Name.
True.
Well,
but if there's some kind of redeeming qualities there, you have to. I think in that case, you have to acknowledge the redeeming qualities. Because I have heard of some Black people getting, being Rhodes Scholars.
Yeah.
So that's catch-22. But again, like I said, you're gonna mess with people's. That's heritage.
Well, in that case of your friend, that's on their private, I guess, family plot and all of that. I'd say whatever they want to do is whatever they're going to do. Yeah. But, when I'm thinking about renaming, I also think that a lot of these statues and monuments and heritage sites could be called, white supremacy hidden in plain sight. And are we hiding it more by just changing the name?
But okay, so you said, okay, rename or remove. I think you know, in cases like that, you do need to rename, and you do need to remove, because again, why would you pay homage? Why would you put an epitaph, something that people for the wrong reasons can, in a sense, worship and look to a means of inspiration for something that is less than, less than admirable. And you have that twisted, call it what it is, that twisted group of society that's going to see that. They're going to see only one thing. Their perception is they're going to see that and they're going to feed off of that for the wrong reasons. But in those cases, yeah, you need to remove and rename.
Okay.
Although you do need to acknowledge that there has been some good that has come out of it.
Would you say in the case of the Rhodes Scholarship, it would be remove, rename, remove, and then replace with something else? Because scholarships do provide opportunities like that. And the
Right.
name is
Replace, but you have to acknowledge the roots. I mean, if, was the guy completely bad?
I'm sure he had a wife that loved him.
Or, yeah, okay.
Was he an outright racist?
Probably.
Yeah, that's kind of. It
So
seems that's the consensus.
How do some blacks wind up with the scholarship?
Because he ain't around to say who gets it and who doesn't.
In that case, you could put an asterisk.
Okay. Fair enough.
Again, it's taking something that was meant for evil and now you're turning it around and using it for good. Right. So yeah, he might have been he got some issues, but so you give him an asterisk. Oh yeah, this is Rhodes. This is these were once the Rhodes Scholars, and he blah blah blah. He did this. However, today, throw the however in there.
Okay. Were you gonna say something, Ben, about that? No. Okay. Well, so because along those same lines, I mean, that takes me to something that Brian Stevenson of Equal Justice Initiative once said, and I think that really just touched me, that no one's as bad as the worst thing they've ever done. And people can do some really, really bad things, and maybe somebody is. But I think about Dr. Marion Sims, and they've been actually in New York, they've removed a statue of him that was there from the 1940s. Now, let's see, he is known as the father of modern gynecology. He was the first person in New York to start a women's health center. He also, created the speculum. You gentlemen probably don't know much about that, but it's okay. All right, just so you know. And yeah, he did actually cure some serious diseases like fistulas and stuff like that. But what did he also do was he also went down he was in Alabama, and he bought these enslaved women and he, experimented on them, and he put them through terrible, terrible torture he didn't consider it torture, as he's trying to solve this fistula problem. And I mean, there are 10 women, and one of them, what was her name here? I have it, Amancha. He operated on her 10 times. But of course he used anesthesia. So, oops, sorry, no, he didn't. He did not. None of them got any kind of anesthesia. And I mean, this woman was operated on 30 times, and other women were multiple times as well. So when he solved the problem, what did he do? He then gave it to the Women's Center in Alabama, in New York, and he said that it was used a lot in Europe, where it was used on white women who also operated on without anesthesia. Oops, no, they got the anesthesia. They got sedated. So they asked him, why did you do this? And the women are screaming and crying and begging. He held them there for hours. And let me give a quote, because I don't want to say anything that's false. They don't feel pain like white people. And this is a person who has had this statue. What'd you say?
You're making me squirm when I heard, yeah. Oh.
I mean, when I was reading this, and as a woman, I can only imagine. And yeah, I don't even want to think about that. And Mel, I hope that doesn't put you through too much. So he was, but they said, okay, so he did do some good things. He did great things with these experiments that he did, but, he also, tortured these women, and it was considered, questionably ethical back then. Today it would be totally unethical. but it's what he did, and he's been praised for that. I mean, he's still known as the father of modern gynecology. He's still respected in many ways, and it's still very controversial for New York to have taken down a statue. How can that be? You know,
Well, in this issue, would you say you're separating, because there's the things he had to do and there's, I guess, the results. Do you think that when that statue represents the results he had, or that you can't really disconnect the results from that entire process?
well, the way that the statues, and there are over 800 still in the U.S., and the statues and plaques were put up, he was just revered for his brilliance and what he did for women's health. That to me isn't telling the story, not by a long shot. And I don't see how someone like that can still be revered. Okay, we can recognize what he has done, in what he accomplished in terms of curing some problems, but we have to see how he got there, and that story isn't being told.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about him, and that one that's macabre. That's horrible. Yeah, somebody like that. Those statues need to be taken down. There should be a note in history. Yeah, this guy, he was able to fix this. However, in the process, he tore. He was. I mean, that's something that you read about that a serial killer does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just horrible. You know, I, I'm lost for words. Especially when you get to the point where they say, "Oh yeah, they don't feel pain like we do." But again, no, that's different. That you've crossed the line completely.
Completely, and that has to be revealed. And this thing about Black people not feeling pain like white people,
Exactly. Yeah.
in a way, I remember Doug brought this up, that many times some medical, community hasn't completely let go of that notion.
No, they haven't. They have not. They have not. Even if we're looking at, I'm gonna try not to go off track course here, but even today, if you look at it, when we have the disproportionate numbers of Black males being shot, being beaten, oh no, it's fine, he can take it. Right back to the controversy. You're going to sit there with your knee on this man's neck. Even when it comes down to the, I forgot the name of the guy who was, they killed him when he was selling loose cigarettes.
Oh yeah, Eric Gardner. Yeah.
Yeah, cops. You can see him. They're coming. Oh, he's a big boy. Yeah, he's a big one. We're gonna get him. Why? Why? Because he's Black? Oh, so you need 10 people to jump on him because he's Black? No, he's human.
And he's saying, "I can't breathe."
Right. Let's steer back to yeah, Dr. Was yeah,
Yeah.
That was bad. So you got me to thinking. So I'm gonna throw some names at you. Well, I'm gonna throw these at you first. Okay. So I'm gonna give you some names of some people. So there's Mr. Beauregard, Mr. Bragg, Mr. Polk. There's a Mr. Hill, a Pickett, a Hood, a Lee. There's Gordon, Benning, and Yamamoto. Now I gave you 11 names or so. Now, all of those people have attacked Americans.
Oh yeah.
All of them except for one has a military base named in their honor.
Oh.
A whole military base. Now, who did you pick out the name that didn't kind of, which one of these things is not like the other, but it's kind of the same because he attacked Americans too? Did you figure that one out?
If I were to guess. No? Okay. I don't know.
Which one was not like the other, but actually he attacked Americans too?
Yamamoto.
Right.
He orchestrated the attack on Pearl Harbor. The rest of them fought in the Civil War. They attacked in the Civil War, but they have military bases in their honor. Now, what if they would have won?
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
Now, why doesn't Yamamoto get a military base in his honor too? He attacked Americans too.
He did.
What if they would have won?
Oh boy, things be a lot different. I think
Oh
most.
yeah, no, but they didn't win. But they still have entire military facilities that are servicing blacks, every race that lives in this. And you have to go on that military base and honor these people when, especially when you're black, when you know that their entire intent was the demise of the black race. But you have to go on that base and you have to honor Fort Gordon or Fort Benning or General Lee and all of these people.
Yeah.
Hood. What sense does that make?
And it really is honoring them. Yeah, it's I don't know, you could commemorate or anything. No, it is really honoring those people, and we are supposed to go and pay homage to the people who attacked Americans in America and trying to split it up.
As a black man, how am I going to honor somebody that wanted to see me continue to be enslaved?
That's right. That's right. And when I heard about Lee, they put him out as a real fine gentleman, but I heard he was brutal, a brutal.
Oh yeah. One of who Gordon, it's believed that he was one of the main characters in the KKK in his area. There's Fort Gordon, Brown Gordon.
What state?
That was in Georgia.
Oh, that's Georgia. Wow.
Yeah, but yet we have military bases. Come on. I think that's a step below the Capitol. Now, there has been like the ex-mayor of New York. What was his name? Which one?
Was it Giuliani?
That's what I was. Yeah.
Giuliani?
No, not oh, definitely not Giuliani. You don't want to go there. That's we'll be sitting for a while. What was that? What was that one's name? And he said absolutely they need these bases need to be renamed, but you have people fighting that because they call it heritage.
Oh, wow. Okay, just come for a second.
So, yeah, it was the former mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, that said the names need to come down immediately and be changed. That's like, it's like saying, okay, I'm going to pay homage to somebody who killed my mother, but they built a house. No. So no, they didn't even build a house. They wanted to destroy the house. So what are your feelings on that? I know that's a big one. I threw a bunch of Lego blocks at you, but hey,
yeah,
But and then Yamamoto. I mean, and we didn't even go into the stuff that has taken place off of American soil, and that was the only time that Americans have actually been attacked on their own country was when Yamamoto did it. Sorry,
yeah,
not Yamamoto, but other than that, and there's other things, but we still have all of these military facilities that are named after people that wanted us. You fill in the blank. What do you do with that?
I mean, I say rename. I mean, obviously, we're not going to close down these things, but I say rename. And I also think that we have to put up some information about. It was called, Fort Hood or whatever, and it was removed because of this part of his past. That just wasn't acceptable anymore. Maybe back then, even with Dr. Sims, they were saying, well, he's a product of his time. This person was too, but still the times have changed. So I say rename, but we're still thinking that we're just, burying white supremacy, just under another layer of dirt.
Yeah, and I mean, some people will say that in doing so, you're erasing history. And I think if you still have, if you reframe the history differently so that you could put it in a museum, you could have that little commemoration there. Not a commemoration, but, formerly named XYZ, this person did ABC, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think when you're dealing with bases where people are going to have to work, or libraries where people may have to give money, those should be renamed. but what they're renamed to also makes a big difference. So who or what will the name be changed to?
But Ben, they also, I mean, there were also people who are traitors to the country. I mean, when you lose
Yeah.
the war, you know, you're
Okay,
supposed
yeah.
to actually be the loser and a lot of other stuff, but they seem to have won the narrative. I don't know how that happens, but these were traitors to America.
Absolutely, absolutely. But they're not recognized as traitors. Now they're being paid honor. And for what?
How did this
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's never clearly defined. Why do they have this huge facility in their honor?
how did this happen? And with public money too, public funds, public lands.
We honor General Lee for what?
Yeah, for being a brutal slave owner who attacked and tried to break up the union.
Yeah.
Those weren't
So
good. Yeah. So if anyone wasn't sure.
that's a heavy one. That's a heavy one. One other one that I've had to really I struggled with growing up in Oakland. Oakland, city of Oakland, you know, it's known for the Raiders and the A's. It's known for its music and its heritage, which is deeply rooted in the Black community.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
growing up in Oakland, you know, as kids, we didn't know the place that we used to go to hang out, or the cool place that we always talked about, was Jack London Square.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful Jack London Square in the city of downtown Oakland. And, you know, we were taught about Jack London and, you know, White Fang, Call of the Wild, and all these books he wrote. And we had to read these books, and he's this great writer. However, I'll tell the story so if I can tell it quick. I like the boxer Jack Johnson. I was watching a documentary on Jack Johnson, and they started talking about how Jack London had written columns in the newspaper about Jack Johnson. I'm like, oh. And they were extremely racist. I'm like, really? The guy that we were made to honor because his name is, you know, is on plaques, it's on parks. He has a park, he has a trail, he has a few other places, you know, in his honor. The whole center of downtown Oakland, Jack London, as I did more studying on him, the guy was racist, serious racist.
Really? So he wrote these things about Jack Johnson and other things? What?
In his books, one of his books, he talked about the extermination of the Asian race. He talked about another one of his quotes was how whites are there because it's okay for them to kill because they are the master race.
Man.
I've got some quotes here. He said when Jack Johnson became the champion, he said, one thing now remains, Jim Jeffries must emerge from his alfalfa farm and remove the golden smile from Jack Johnson's face. It's up to you. The white men must be rescued.
Oh man.
That's no.
Wow.
That's a direct quote.
Wow.
Another one's great white hope. He must step up and win back the racist pride. You know, this is Jack London, you know, who we had to read in school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so but of course, you know, he's got, you know, all these places in not only, well, I mean, I guess that's still about the same thing as military bases in the South.
Yeah.
Having slave owners name on them in their honor. But yeah, that one just, I never understood it, especially being educated in Oakland, which doesn't say a whole lot.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know, and his name is still up, and I hardly ever hear anybody say anything about removing his name from those places in Oakland.
I mean, I think there was a lot of stuff going on with Jack London in Monterey, I think too. But in Oakland, do you think it's worse in Oakland because of the demographics? Because I mean, this is a woke Black town. You know, this is the home of the Black Panthers and the Warriors. Yes, the Warriors still belong there.
To be awakened, you must be shaken.
Oh. Okay.
Well, what do you mean by that in this?
In this sense,
Yeah.
nobody's shaking anybody. In other words, to be awoke is to be awakened to knowledge. To be shaken is to be said, hey, wake up. You see this in front of you? Look at this. Hey, Ben, do you see that? And you're like, and after I shake you a couple times, you go, oh, I see now. And that's what happened to me. I had to actually be shaken, and I had to do the shaking, but myself. But I'm like, whoa, I didn't know this. Now, if somebody was to actually go on there and start reconsidering the content that the kids are and that they're being fed, I won't being say taught. They're being fed this, but they're not being shown the entire plate. They're not being shown it's just like you talk about this doctor. Oh yeah, he did this and he did that. However, did you know he did some horrible things, and he said it was done to this better good. I guess that's not a good term.
Yeah.
So, these people are not being shaken. Another quick one. I remember when my kids were in like 4th and 5th grade, they were sent home with their yearly Thanksgiving and the Indians' first Thanksgiving dinner assignment.
Oh boy.
Did you say, oh boy?
I said, oh boy. Shaking my head too.
And I read it and I was like, yeah, dokie. And I looked at my son, I said, well, we're going to do this because you have to do this, but we're also going to attach this on the backside. So we did two. We did the assignment that he was required to do. Then we did our own informational assignment to do some shaking.
Great. Uh-huh. How did that work at school?
Oh, the teacher looked at it and she was kind of like, okay, she just got shook.
Uh-huh. All right.
Now, whether she wanted to wake up and open up her eyes, I don't know, but I know I never had that assignment come from any other classes after that.
Great. And yeah, maybe I see what you're saying about being shaken. Yeah.
So, and there is, in some cases, there's some awakening happening. Right now, we know, I think they call it Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah.
But it's still on the calendar, and most calendars still says Columbus Day. And what Columbus, he was another, we were taught the whole Columbus bit in school.
Oh yeah. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered.
And he had slaves in the bottom of the ships that we didn't knew.
Hey, it rhymes still too.
Yeah, we never knew. But we weren't taught that. That history. Then you got this whole thing, and I never did really get too deep into it about how they're trying to. The last administration was talking about some kind of 1776 history and all that stuff, and they're trying to eliminate that now. They're trying to eliminate teaching minority history, or you might as well just call it Black history, because we are the major minority, that we're the contributing factor to the major changes and the major development of this country. They're trying to eliminate that. I love the quote that Michelle Obama said. We're living in a house, when they were in office, that slaves built.
Yeah.
People don't even know that slaves built the White House. I mean, they know, but it's kind of brushed over.
No, I get it. But I do have to say, you know what? I don't like calling them slaves, because they were people. And so I have to prefer enslaved people. Yeah, I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
But let me ask you, Ben, a question here too, because you were talking then about, Christopher Columbus and, you were Kirk, but then you were bringing up something about, outside of the US, something about.
Well, okay, no, that's something. I also do have something to say about Christopher Columbus. So when there is new legislation being made to make Washington, D.C. a state, this is really cool stuff. And a lot of changes would be made. One of them would be changing the name from Washington District of Columbia, after Christopher Columbus, to the Washington Douglas Commonwealth, after Frederick Douglass. So that's something interesting. That's a cool, I don't know, something to think about. But
Yes.
for outside the U.S., there is also in Belgium at least, Leopold II is a really controversial issue. There are about 12 statues of him around Belgium, And for those who don't know, he killed about 10 million people in his time in the Congo, and his statues are still up. Now, one of them has been moved to a museum, but there's still these kind of honorable, they look very honorable, like monuments of that kind of thing. And in my opinion, those should probably be taken down and put in a museum. That's probably where they belong, if you even need 12 of those statues there, because they aren't really made. The artistic aspect isn't the main thing with them. It's what they represent. And in that sense, they represented Belgian glory and power. Well, that power came at the cost of about 10 million lives. And it's wrong. I don't think there's anything, it's a mark of shame, if anything. So,
And I think it also, overlooks and ignores these 10. I had 15 million people, but that were killed, under his, what was he, almost 40 years, and the people whose children too, hands that were cut off and arms cut off. And yeah, and that a lot of, and I wonder if this is why they stay up, that his regime, was trying to get all the rubber out and all that stuff, exploit the resources from the Congo. That was, a lot of that was then copied by the other European powers. And so maybe, they don't feel about him the way, people of color do.
Let me ask you a question. So, if I'm not mistaken, Germany removed as much as they could about Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maybe they got it right. What did they do with all his memorabilia?
They don't even have a Hitler museum. Not allowed to have that.
Right.
He's not allowed to be mentioned in books and quoted or anything like that. Mentioned in books in a decent way, like he's a decent person. Yeah, you can't quote him. Nothing like that.
Maybe they got it right.
That's what I'm thinking, because they still have Auschwitz, and these are places you go when they're heavy, and it's not a place of honor. It's a place of, like I said, yeah, it's a heavy place where you learn.
It's still a place of remembrance. What's that saying? Those who forget the past or you're
doomed to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. In Auschwitz.
Anything that says about those who embrace the past?
Oh, one thing Germany does too is, and I see this in Paris as well and other places, they have little plaques around that show, these people were shot here on this day, trying to defend France or in defense of their family or something like that, or supporting the resistance. I mean, they have those kinds of things around, and I think they got that right. Yeah, I do too. So what are we saying then? What do you say about you said about the Leopold statues on his horse?
Remove. If anything, put them in the museum, but I'm okay with really just them being removed.
And what about you, Kurt?
I think we must go forward, and as these are essential parts of history. But when I think about what Germany has done, I'm sure the Hitler memorabilia exists somewhere for, in the archives of something. But I think remove. And this is stuff that we can't forget. But just like they've been perpetuating Christopher Columbus and this other doctrine and all this, we need to change that stuff. We know it's here, we know it happened, but you can't continue to perpetuate a lie. You lie until people believe it, and people are starting to be shaken now. So you got to remove that stuff. We have to do better.
But I have to say, as an historian, I do wonder, are we trying to erase history? And then where does it stop? Because some people say, hey, let's get rid of the Lincoln statues. Let's get rid of Thomas Jefferson. He great writer, but he wasn't all that. He wasn't so great with some of the stuff he did against, women and against, the Black population.
Yeah.
Where does it end?
That's true. That's a tough one. So you have to make it's a sliding scale, you grade on a curve.
Yeah, but at the same time, like there is no comparison between Lincoln and Leopold II.
True.
There just isn't. The like I'm not even going to go into why that's true, but I
But
think yeah, go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead. What you think?
Yeah, I think people should be able to debate those things, but yeah, I'm not sure where the line would be drawn.
There's a biblical um, scripture, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, but it says when you come something to the effect that when you come to the light of the truth, then you walk in that. And I think there's something to be said for that. So yeah, Lincoln, you're talking about Lincoln. Okay, here's our curve. Lincoln started waking up. He started finding, okay, there's light. I'm gonna have to walk in this knowledge. Okay, he might not have been perfect, but he started making changes. When you have people like Leopold, I'm not sure what changes he made, but sometimes, it's just like the atrocities that you have committed can be so bad that, you know, your redeemableness is, I don't know, you just can't, you know. What if Hitler hadn't quote unquote committed suicide? Because we don't know, you know. But they're still prosecuting people for the stuff that they did to the Jews. When they find them, if they're still alive, they prosecute them.
They should. Right.
They should. So, I think but then you got people that I think during that time they came to that light, that knowledge. They said, I can't do this. This is wrong.
Hmm.
You know.
Well, uh, Lincoln, I don't I don't know if he had the moment, but from what I do know about him, he was pretty much a racist. Like he said that he believed that black people were inferior, and I mean that's obviously unacceptable. But there's a difference between those beliefs and owning slaves, which is also obviously it's awful, and pretty much committing a genocide. And I think Lincoln has a much different role in American history than Leopold. I guess you could say they have there's a small similarity, but Lincoln really, just a different history there.
Well,
Okay.
but maybe Lincoln's history too. Well, because I think a lot of people don't know that he would have preserved slavery if the southern states hadn't tried to secede. And so, but they wanted to secede anyway, so he gets thrown into this position, and then that makes he is looked back then on as a great person, and I think in some ways he was. But maybe we should be teaching more of maybe we should just need to do more truth telling. Maybe there needs to be that reckoning, and then let people judge for themselves.
Yeah.
That saying, racism is taught.
Mm.
Racism is taught. So we start off by not teaching the truth.
Oh, yeah.
If you just like, as a kid, come on, I grew up as a kid singing the Christopher Columbus song and, thinking Christopher Columbus was this nice guy with, coming with fish to how you gonna trade land for fish? Whatever, I don't know. I'm corn, I don't know. Come on. But see, we're taught that foolishness.
Yeah.
We're taught Jack London was this great guy. We're not told all the truths about Lincoln. And I'm sure that if you go back to the South, I was going to say another word, but if you go back to the South, I'm sure those people have their way of throwing their spin on why all these Confederate generals should have places named in their honors, and I'm sure then. So what's the spin on Leopold? What's the good that they say about him? The reason that he has the statues that are posted in his honor. What's the good part?
He did make a lot of money for Belgium. He was like a colonist. They made a lot of money for Belgium. It really kind of put them on the map, so to say. It's a fairly young country. It was only really founded in like 1830 or so. And so when he's doing this, making a lot of money for this small place, that can make a big difference.
That's just like the doctor. Yeah, he made strides for gynecology, but what he did in the process you
It's horrific.
yeah. So, here we go now. What do? We start educating. This is the truth. This is what really happened. So that can't continually be perpetuated, the lie. Uh, you know,
No.
Well, it's harder to unlearn something after you've been taught it, and it's so ingrained in the
but there
culture.
you never teach it.
Well, I mean, about Columbus. It's hard to unlearn,
Yeah.
about what's happened on Thanksgiving and all of that.
And then you have people that refuse to acknowledge it because it's part of their heritage.
Right, but I mean, like Ben, do you find that people are, open to hearing these things, or do you? Because I know I just get people rolling their eyes at me, saying, "Oh, here she goes again," and do this a lot. Do you get that as well?
I think it depends on, I think with Thanksgiving, I think a lot of people just kind of say, like, I just want to eat my food and move on with living. I think that's the attitude a lot of people have to it. But with things like with Leopold, a lot of people will have an opinion on that. And when you bring it up, I don't think that's like a roll your eyes type of issue because it's so important.
So
Okay.
what's the consensus of people? Do the majority of them understand his role, or do they just like, oh yeah, Leopold, he helped us build Belgium?
Oh, I can't speak on that. I don't, just from my experience, the majority of people I've spoken with, they tend to say that, yeah, okay, what he did was bad. It should be removed. But
Well,
But
I think I know someone who knows a little bit about it, and she just walked in. Mel, hey, Mel, welcome to have an espresso with me.
Thank you. Hi, all of you. I've been, kind of overhearing, just listening to what was going on, and I have my own list. And I'd like for you guys to give me your opinion about this. What should we do? Remove,
Can I?
destroy,
But first,
explain?
before we move on to that, about what do you know about what people are saying in Belgium about Leopold II?
That's a good question. I haven't talked to a lot of people, and pandemic, of course, has been there, so we don't get to talk to a lot of people. But I think the consensus is that Leopold II is someone not to be revered, but and not to be copied. But as Ben said, he got a lot of money for Belgium, so they keep his statue up to say, well, he did something right, and I guess the part was giving his money to Belgium, but. As a person, I think the consensus is he's not to be revered.
Okay. Okay. Well, so what was this list you're talking about?
Okay, I have a list of things and places and people, and like your opinion on what we should do about those, because I've been struggling with it myself. The first one on my list is the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and you remember that bridge from the movie Selma. That's the bridge where they walked, Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and others, walked into Montgomery to confront the administration there. And it was named after Edmund Pettus, who was a leader of the Alabama KKK. And he was also a Confederate general. So what do you think? Should we rename Kurt, this is a question directed to you. Should we rename the Edmund Pettus Bridge? Should we keep it, remove it, destroy it? What do you think?
oh my goodness. So as you were saying, I was just thinking, you know, a dear friend of mine uh, actually knew, what was it, John Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he posted some pictures on Facebook of this graphic novel, but he didn't tell where it came from, and it just showed pictures of these Black people being beat, and you could see at the top there was like the sign of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So it's like in a comic book, a graphic novel. And I didn't understand the book, but it was like, then watching the graphic novel, was like, oh, looking at it, I was like, oh, it was bad. It was really, really bad. So I think, to answer your question now, after I said all that, yeah, you need to rename it. But I think the cool thing is if you could just and put a line through it and say formerly the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Now it's the John Lewis Memorial Bridge.
Yes.
That would just be, it would educate, but it also no, you can't get away with this. You need to remember this so you don't ever think about doing something like this again. It was horrible.
Yeah. Wow.
I like that. I like that approach. Put a line through it so we know what it was, but then rename it John Lewis for all the wonderful things that he's done. Have another one. This is one's for Robin. Okay, in the Tennessee State Capitol, there's a bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, he was the first Grand Wizard of the KKK. Should we leave that bust? Sorry?
Anything about the Klan has got to go. Destroy, stomp into existence, and just teach people about this terrorist, domestic terrorist organization in schools and what they did to innocent people, in order to try to control the Black population. But any names or anything that looks like, smells like, even gives a whiff of honoring or commemorating anybody, it's got to go.
Got to go. Okay. Well, Ben, you've got this question. Okay. In the U.S. Capitol, in the National Statuary Hall, there's a collection of 8 Confederate figures. Among them is a statue of Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy. What should we do with that?
Remove, put it in the museum.
Put it in a museum. And why would you put it in a museum?
It's history. It's still a part of history, but let's not have it out there as this, honorable entity.
Okay. Okay, well, that's a very, very good approach, because we do need to preserve history, even though it may not be something that we entirely support in terms of what this person did. Okay, we're back to you, Kurt. Okay, January 19th is Confederate Heroes Day in Texas. All state employees get the day off.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, I see you grabbing your head, Robin.
Yeah. What should we do with that?
Ooh. Yeah, I like what Ben said when he said history, remove it. But here it is. You're going to give a Confederacy Day off, but you can't give people the day off to go vote.
Wow.
Oh, that needs to be erased from the annuals of time. That's ridiculous. I that had a great analogy. I mean, during the development of weaponry, I'm sure they had many weapons that used to be okay, like certain guns or whatever. But at one point you figure out this is doing more damage than it is good. And what did they do with it? They put it in a museum. It's history. We don't use that anymore. It's not effective. It's not good. It didn't work. It was bad. And when we figured out it was bad, we put it away. So it's history. It's in a museum. So anyway, I'm sorry. So yeah, it needs to be done away with.
They got the day off. I mean, you're going to take a day off away from state employees?
Give them. You know what? We need to call it a John Lewis Day. There you go. There's another little zinger. I mean, we have a bunch of Martin Luther King days and all. Yeah. Ooh, see what they would take the day off. I was on a phone call. No, I'll stop.
Okay.
I'm interested.
Okay, so we make January 19th John Lewis Day. Okay, this one's for Robin. Harper's Ferry. Okay, in West Virginia, there's a statue, and this is my list. I mean, I really need your help, so I really appreciate your, giving me this insight. In West Virginia, there's a statue of Hayward Shepherd. He was the first person to die at Harper's Ferry in the John Brown insurrection. Now, this statue is called the Faithful Slave Memorial and was financed by the Sons of the Confederacy. It emphasizes that Black people really enjoyed being slaves, and people like Shepherd were people who were victims of people seeking to free the slaves. What do you think about this statue?
I appreciate the statue. I think the statute should stay. That was, an incredible, I'm gonna call it insurrection, or you could say freedom fight. But you got to rewrite that. I mean, that's just false history. That's untrue. And so I think the statute can stay, but they got to rewrite the history there, rewrite the story there. We have to take more charge of our narrative, and that should never been allowed, and so it should be changed.
Oh, excellent. I mean, that's a very good suggestion, to rewrite the statute. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ben, it's your turn.
Okay.
You have movies. Okay.
All right.
I get that.
So these movies, I mean, I've seen these movies, and these movies have, been concerned me. So I need an answer here. Okay, movies such as The Holiday Inn, in which white people performed in blackface, The King and I, which showed ancient Asian culture in Siam characterized as backward, whose poor grasp of English is played for laughs. Gone with the Wind, another one, portrayed enslaved people as enjoying their lot, depicted as ignorant and superficial. The Only Good Indian and Dances with Wolves. Custer's Last Stand shows Native Americans as savages who torture and kill people. Also, don't forget Tarzan and King Kong. What would you do with these movies? I mean, they're there. They've already been produced and they're online somewhere for somebody to watch. What would you do with these?
Leave them up. I think we should have the opportunities to see. I don't think, first of all, just on the principle, I don't think art should be really controlled in general. I think even bad art or propaganda, people should be able to see it and make their own decisions. Now, obviously, these are racist movies, but I think that they have, by seeing those things, we can also look at the movies we make now and make sure it doesn't go that way. But in general, I don't think art in that form should be restricted and that those movies should still be out.
Appreciate your advice on that. Kurt, you have children's books. Now, Huck Finn, I've read it. Huckleberry Finn is about a white boy trying to escape his father and a black boy trying to escape slavery. Now, the N word is used in the book 200 times. Now, this is a book written for, boys, children, elementary school. What do you think we should do with that?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, I don't like the word. I prefer not to use the word. I know, blacks affectionately use the word, but I think, you can't use it, period, because you have white kids using it with each other. So then you put it in a book and you continue, it's history. And as Ben was saying, that's art, but I think there's some art that needs to be done away with. That it's not teaching anything that can't be taught in a different way. Yeah, that's not helping matters. And some people say, yeah, you should just use the word freely, then you become desensitized to it. But no, because it's still a catalyst for too many people, still very, very sensitive. So yeah, you need to just go ahead, and I know they're counseling Dr. Seuss, some of his books.
Oh yeah.
Back to Ben. In the movies, I thought about Song of the South, which was a Disney movie, and it portrayed slaves as being happy, happy enslaved people, or workers that don't get paid. How's that, Robin? So they banned Song of the South.
Yeah.
And I'd never really seen it. So, but anyway, so back to your question. Yeah, I think they need to stop using the book. You can't take it out of circulation. It's too many out there, but it's just, as far as being required reading in the school, no, we don't, especially white kids. They don't need to read that garbage. They hear us degrade ourselves enough.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Thank you for that insight. Robin, got you next here on slave games in the schools. A lot of schools have been holding slave auctions in class where the kids pretend to be runaway slaves, or they're being sold. They advance through an obstacle course. They have to go to the Underground Railroad, and then there are video games like Police Quest that promote racist stereotyping and encourage violence against Black characters. Would you just do away with all the slave games in schools and the videos?
With the games that involve enslaved people, these enslaved reenactments almost, I would absolutely do away with those. If they want to teach about slavery, there is, and how enslaved people were treated and how they were dehumanized and all of that. I think they should teach that, but they shouldn't have kids, playing that they are the enslaved person up there on the auction block, and other kids are buying them, or doing the work for them, or that they're even the ones that are supposed to be escaping through this obstacle course. I don't think you should do in reenactments like that. because I'm hearing that too with younger kids, doing with younger kids, and that's unacceptable. So I say that has to stop. Now, video games, that's a different one. That's a little harder, because it's almost becoming like a really major art form, a modern art form. Uh, question its artistic value, but these games aren't going away. Maybe they can do something like, some kind of, age limit or some kind of warnings, about to let parents know that this kind of stuff is involved in this game, and to let people know too that these kinds of, you think that you're kicking you're a policeman in this police quest game, kicking a Black person and everything, that you don't just walk away from that, unchanged. So I think that they're out there and they're not going to be taken out. And I'm hesitant to limit or restrict this kind of art form. No, that's not true. I'm hesitant to take it away, but there has to be some kind of explanation and some kind of age restrictions and warnings on there too.
Mm-hmm. And that's reasonable because they have warnings on a lot of movies and games, and they have age limits also. So thank you for that suggestion. That's very good.
One more thing, just to add to that.
Okay.
After George Floyd was killed, there was a challenge going around also, which was horrific. It was so, the person would lay down and pretty much go into the same position in which George Floyd was killed, and someone else would stand on their neck as some challenge. I mean, that's disgusting. Whose kids are these?
As we see, they didn't do it right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
we find out, no, they didn't do it the correct way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or they wouldn't have been doing it.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, it's just amazing that people would try to mimic that behavior. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, Benji, you're next. Ben.
Okay.
Okay. There are schools that are named after white supremacists. One example is Strom Thurmond High School. It was named after one of the state's most influential politicians and one of its foremost supporters of segregation. What would you do? I mean, there's the high school is still there. They are currently half the population of the school are African Americans. What would you do with that?
What state was this in?
It's in South Carolina.
That's a tough one. That's tough. I'm tempted to go with rename. I think that's the position that describes my position best.
Mm-hmm.
Probably rename it. Yeah, but then with schools, no, screw it. Rename. That's
rename the school. Okay, I can go with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, Kurt, you have the last one on my list.
Just 1 second here. What was difficult about that one for you, Ben?
I think with schools, it's the decision-making process. And I mean, I'm kind of just thinking about how these things happen. Like, of course, in this scenario, I control it, but it's about who's able to do it. And of course, if most of the students going there would be against it and their parents would be against it, then yes, they should. But also on that other side, if the majority of people agree that they want to hold the name up, then in principle, that's what should be done. But in my opinion, I think it should be renamed.
Okay, I do one last point on that. I know, I mean, Strom Thurmond has passed away now, but when you said Strom for decades, when you said Strom Thurmond's name, your vision was of someone who believed in segregation, and if he could have had it, he would have just preferred slavery anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's I think how the Black community felt about him. What do you think about that, Kurt? Do you remember that too?
The schools would not have been integrated.
Okay.
So that's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like Betsy DeVos. I'm sorry, I hope I don't get in trouble with her name. Yeah, it's kind of like taking I don't know, I'll stop with my analogy. But yeah, that needs to be renamed. People, yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all your advice, because I think that what happens is that, the schools get named and they get named and people say, oh, Strom Thurmond School, and they don't really think about the person. And I think that, if it's explained like who this was, I don't think we would be talking about this. I think the name would be changed.
Yeah. See,
So they don't know who this person is. They say, oh, I just go to Strom Thurmond. That's it,
I didn't know who he was. That, like, you heard said Confederate person,
Mhm.
but didn't know the details. I don't know the details.
Mhm.
Actually, maybe that you can have more balanced views then, probably. So
Yeah.
when I think of Strom Thurmond, I'm thinking get rid of erase. That's an erase thing for me,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but the kids may not know that, their parents may not know that. We don't know. But I think that if there was more, explanation, education about who this person was, we wouldn't be discussing this. That there would always be already be a movement on to change the name of the school.
I think the parents know.
And they may, and they absolutely may.
Okay.
Okay, I have my last one here on my list. Not that there shouldn't be a lot more on my list, but this is the last that I have written down on my list. The Squaw Teats Buttes. This is for Kurt. It's called Squaw Teats Butte in Wyoming. It's one of hundreds of federally recognized places whose names feature the word squaw, often in terms that crudely objectifying indigenous women. Many suggest that it was derived from a slang word for a woman's genitals. I don't know if that's true or not. It has since become misogynist and a racist slur. What do you think we should do with Squaw Teats boots? It's like a boot.
I wish I could just answer your question and leave it alone, but I got to go a little bit deeper. I have a serious problem with the oh God, my brain, that the thing with the president's head on Mount Rushmore, which is on Native American land that the government paid them for, and they never cashed the check. Money that the United States government gave them for that land, they have not touched it. They refuse it. They want their land back.
Oh, uh-huh.
They're not Indians. That guy that we celebrated in school thought he was in India. That guy who sang the song about that we were taught. Again, he thought he was in India. And it's taken a couple of 100 years for us to stop calling Native Americans Indians. Yeah, leave them alone. They need way more respect. There needs to be some complete rewriting of history for them, and some changes in laws and procedures and processes. I've been on an Indian reservation before. It was not a nice thing. So yeah, that definitely has to go. I think they deserve so much more.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of people, use the word redskin, a red man, Indian, a squaw, and it's very, very offensive. So they're Native Americans, and we should honor that.
They aren't Native Americans, though, because, well, technically they were there before America. So,
Or they are natives of the Americas. Would you rather say that?
no.
Okay.
I think if we're gonna speak technically, I mean, maybe refer to. Look, I'm not gonna say like what to call them because I do not know, and it's not my. Maybe
What about First Nations people?
First Nations, or where they're actually from, or what they like to be called.
Yeah, absolutely. But we know they don't like to be called, and it's offensive to call them redskins or red men or squaws and things like that.
Tell that to that football team.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
football team, they changed the name. I don't think they have a name now. I think they're just called the Washington team or something.
Really?
something like that. Yeah, they just took the name Redskins out, I think. Yeah.
And then was it the Cleveland Indians? Do they still have their name?
I
But they,
think that name's still there, but I don't really know for sure.
yeah, but that's anything to do with them. Those people, yeah, we have some being black. We have some issues going on, but they are just completely underrepresented and still mistreated, and people just look over them like they don't even exist.
That's true.
It's like that. There was a something happened in Congress or something where one of those brainless Congress persons told one of the Native American representatives to go back to their own country.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Say, well, I was here before you were.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah.
Well, this has been a really interesting discussion. And yeah, it's a lot to think about. I mean, I like to rename and all of that and replace, but I'm also, as a historian, I think we can't forget the history. As you were saying, Kurt, about if we forget it, we can easily repeat it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the insight on my list. You've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah. It was an interesting list. Yeah.
It was. But I admit, I finished my espresso now.
As have I.
You finally had an espresso.
Pot is empty. My teapot is empty.
Mine is cold.
I'm supposed to drink it. Okay, but this was really great conversation. And yeah, I hope we can continue with this another time too. So anyway, everybody stay safe and let's get together again soon, huh?
Sounds great.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Right.
See you guys soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Asante Sana for joining us for this uncommon conversation. The takeaway for me is that there are a lot of racist reminders hidden in plain sight that we probably see on a daily basis. Dr. Marion Sims, I talked about him earlier, is still revered as the father of gynecology despite his unethical practices and torture of enslaved women. We couldn't tell the full story on the show, but when I think about Anarcha and Lucy and many of the other enslaved women and what they endured, I'm disgusted and infuriated about his continued stature in the medical community. And no, it's not okay, even if he did develop an important surgery. It's just not okay. And Cecil B. Rhodes was a British colonizer that stole huge amounts of land from Southern Africans, from the African people, and forced Africans into a virtual slavery to enrich his diamond business. Did you know that was how the Rhodes Scholarship was funded? And what about a lot of these heritage sites, a lot of these Confederate sites? Do they pay homage to people who engaged in racist behavior or even enslavement of another human being? Will we be asking these questions if this was not about the bad treatment of Black people, but about another marginalized group? I had never heard of the bigotry of Jack London. As a journalist, he was writing about Black people and calling them savages. I do not make allowances for the time period in which he was writing. I actually loved his books, and I learned a lot about him in California, but I never heard that until now. There's even a famous vibrant square in Oakland, California, in the Black community, deep in the Black community, named after him. And that's because people don't know his history. If they did, they could make up their own minds about him and about the naming of a square. But why is the full history being hidden from us? Finally, I know that you enjoyed the discussion about what to do with white supremacist history and monuments. Remove them, rename them, or let them remain. Everyone has their own thoughts and ideas and opinions about that, and I definitely want to hear yours. Let us know. Send us a message at team@espressotalktoday.com. No judgments on you, that is. Only discussion. All views are welcome and all are respected. Okay, this is My final comment, really, this time, and it's the surprise that I mentioned. Just like white supremacist culture exists all around us, guess what? So does African culture. It is not acknowledged in the same way as, say, Robert E. Lee statues, but enslaved Africans and African immigrants have brought and are bringing their culture to the United States and everywhere else that they have migrated. We're talking art, languages, literature, statues, cuisine, philosophy, politics, music, clothing, so many other ways, so many other cultural objects from Africa exist in the United States. And we want to discuss them. Where are they? What are they? Why don't we know about them? Why don't we know about this history and the culture? Well, the ETT team is planning a special show to discuss all these questions, and we want you to join us and bring your knowledge and insights too. We'll let you know when the show is ready. I promise you don't want to miss this show. I also promise that you're going to be surprised by some of it and perhaps even be inspired and uplifted. So, that's all for today's show. Asante Sana for joining us. Remember to contact us at team@espressotalktoday.com to make comments or ask questions or just say whatever you want to say. And go to the website to subscribe to the newsletter. And remember, y'all, strength, soul, and reparations. Ashe.